What's the best way to take control of your diet and to not overeat? It's not through tracking your calories, it's not by having more willpower, and it's certainly not through eating more salads. It's by removing the addictive foods in your life that cause you to binge and overeat and feel like garbage all the time. My name is Keegan, and I've regained my health and fitness by removing these certain addictive foods from my life, and it has completely revolutionized my health and well being. And so today I want to share with you what these addictive foods are, how they affect your body, and how you can take steps to remove them or reduce them in your life so you can finally take back control of your diet and enjoy the health benefits that come along with that. So let's get into what these foods are. And this is really important because if you understand what these foods are, if you're eating them in excess, if you're eating a lot of them, you can say, okay, well, it's that food that's causing the issue. Maybe if I try and remove it or, really lower the amount that I eat it, maybe it'll help me in other ways. And so I think it's really important just to understand what they are. But with that, let's kind of go over the basics, right? First things first, junk food, okay? Junk food, just ultra processed food, that like the candy bars, even like the granola bars and stuff like that. All the stuff that comes in like the packaging, Pop-Tarts, freaking weird sugar bread that they sell in America here, bro. It's weird. Crackers. You can imagine all of the central part of the grocery store, almost all of that stuff is ultra processed crap that is designed for you to overeat it. It's literally designed by scientists to have the proper mouthfeel. It's designed with the right split of sugar and fat to really light up the areas of your brain that addict you to this stuff and make you want to eat more and more and more. I think there was a study where they had people eat to satiety with junk food and then like regular whole foods. And they found that people who ate the junk food, right, the ultra processed food, generally ate a lot more than the people who ate the whole food. And I mean that makes sense, right? Like how much, fruit, vegetables, and meat can you really eat before really stuffing yourself? I think you can still do a lot of damage with a certain few things of those, but with junk food, like you can eat way, way more. I remember this myself. I used to be a huge cookie guy, right? My mom would make cookies or I'd buy cookies from the store and you couldn't just have one. I think that's literally the theme for Pringles. It's like you can't have just one. And the reason for that is because they are, like I said, designed for you to overeat them. So that's kind of like broadly as a category, you should just avoid junk food, right? I get it if you want to have it every once in a while, but like there's really no reason why you should ever eat that stuff. Like even for pleasure, like it just destroys your health. It's just not a good way of going about things. I think you can get pleasure from a lot of other things in life that doesn't have to be from food that is toxic to your body and literally makes you want to overeat, especially if you've had issues of overeating in the past. Like I used to have that philosophy of, oh, I want to, enjoy myself with a treat, right? Like a cookie, or right? But the thing is like the health trade-off there, because you don't just eat one cookie, like people say, oh, everything in moderation, but these things literally are designed for you to not eat in moderation. You're just working against yourself if you say, oh, I'm going to have one, right? Even if you do, you're still going to have the signals in your brain telling you have more, which we'll get to in a second. But it's just something I want to touch on. Like it's just that eating for pleasure thing just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But junk food as a whole broad category, whether that's crackers, cookies, cakes, all like 99% of the stuff in the center of the grocery store, you generally should avoid, okay? So that's level one. The next level of addictive foods that I want to talk about is just carbohydrates and sugar in general. So the reason why I say that is because in my life, what I have experienced is even whenever I cut out all the junk food, right? I stopped eating cookies, stopped with the cake, I stopped all that stuff, and I thought I was being super healthy. I was a lot healthier, but the thing is I would drift more to the sweeter things in, the whole foods, right? It would be fruits, and I would also enjoy like the starchy vegetables and stuff, and I'd eat a ton of that stuff. And I just found myself craving more of it. There was this one time where I was eating a pineapple, right? Of all things. I was chopping it up, and I had this whole massive bowl full, because I chopped up a whole pineapple, right? I chopped it up, and I have a little bit, but I couldn't just have one. So I had more and more, until the whole bowl was gone. And then I went I went to school that day just feeling absolutely awful because I was chopping up in the morning. I just felt obese, bro. Like I felt lethargic and terrible. And it was that time in my life, even whenever I wasn't eating a ton of junk food, I was still getting a ton of fat because I was overeating these carbohydrate rich foods, the fruits, the starches, like the potatoes, the rice, those sorts of things. I would just constantly consume them, and I just couldn't help it. It was this drug-like compulsion to eat more. And this kind of leads on into the mechanisms that carbohydrates have. So I was kind of talking about how scientists have designed the junk food, right? Well, carbohydrates, while not designed by scientists, they still affect your body in an addictive manner. So whenever you eat something like fructose, which is a sugar that you find in fruit or even like regular table sugar, right? That stuff, it goes into your brain and it lights up the same areas of your brain as hard drugs like meth or crack. That's not good, because if you light up the same addiction centers in your brain, well, that's an addictive substance. You're going to be addicted to that thing. And I clearly was. I vividly remember it being just compelled to eat more. But it doesn't stop there, because whenever you eat carbohydrates in general, your insulin will go up, because all carbohydrates, regardless if it's a sugar, regardless if it's a starch, whatever it is besides fiber, because you literally cannot digest fiber, right? But if it's a starch or a sugar that you eat, it all breaks down into sugar in your stomach, in your intestines. You absorb that and it raises your blood sugar. And that's not good, because your body likes to keep your blood sugar very, very steady, right? Because there are certain cells in our body that need blood sugar, and so we can make our own. But whenever you eat sugar, it goes up, right? Any form of carbohydrate, it goes up. And the problem with that, though, is whenever it's in this high range, it becomes toxic to our body. And so our body responds by raising our insulin, because our insulin pushes this sugar out of our bloodstream and into like our muscles or our liver, just to get it out of the bloodstream. Because if the blood sugar is too high for too long, you start getting damaging of your blood vessels, of certain tissues. This is why diabetics have to be really careful with their blood sugar, and they have to, be on it with their insulin, because if their blood sugar gets too high and it stays too high, they start getting like nerve damage. They start getting like, they can literally have their limbs amputated because the blood sugar is damaging their body so much. And that's not good. It's just general inflammation. Tons of like not great things happen whenever your blood sugar is elevated, right? So your insulin goes up. Now, all of that to say, your insulin is high, but it's a system-wide thing. And insulin, it blocks the signal of another hormone that comes from your fat cells that tells you to stop eating. It's called leptin. Leptin is your satiety hormone. And so it's kind of just generally floating around because it's produced by your fat cells, and it's produced by your stomach with like the stretch receptors and stuff. But the thing is you can have a ton of leptin in your body, but if your insulin is high, it's going to block the signal of that. And so your body thinks, "Oh, I'm not like satisfied." And so it goes into this drive of like, "Oh, I need to eat more food." And I certainly experienced that myself, right? Just feeling hunger, even though I was stuffing myself and my stomach felt full, I still wanted to eat more food. My brain was telling me, eat more food, even though I clearly didn't need to. And the third and final thing with that is that whenever that insulin gets up, your blood sugar will come down in a crash, basically. It can come down below baseline, And whenever it goes below baseline, that's again a problem because your body's like, oh my gosh, we're running out of energy. And so it's going to tell you to eat more food in that way and make you hungry through your other hunger hormones like ghrelin. So it's just like triple cascade, this like triple threat of issues that come whenever you eat carbohydrates. And I certainly experienced that, and I know a lot of other people experience that whenever they eat, sugary things or carbs or whatever. They just run into this drive where they just need to eat more food. They feel like they're starving when they're clearly not. Like you can probably run into someone who is clearly like overweight or obese, but they feel like they're starving. Why? You clearly don't need that much more food because they're overweight, right? Like they got plenty of energy on their body, but they're starving. Why? It's because their hormones are all messed up, telling them, have more food. Their brain is in a rage, like, have more food. And it's because of this just destruction of your satiety and hunger signals from carbohydrates. And junk food, I mean, it takes advantage of this, obviously, through a ton of sugar. Like most junk food products have a ton of like high fructose corn syrup, a bunch of weird ultra processed sugar in it. They just have that extra level of like scientific design for the mouthfeel and the combination of flavors and artificial this and that for extra shelf life, right? So it's just like a step up. But I think the foundation of why you probably can't control your diet, why you might have been just not understanding why you keep cheating, why you keep binging, even though, you're trying to track your calories, or you're trying to eat, less food, you're trying to use your willpower, right? Your body is literally working against you because of these certain foods that affect your body in that addictive manner, in that extra hunger cascade. It's not good. And so that's really kind of the baseline of why you haven't had much success with your diet. It's because of these carbohydrates that are causing you to overeat. And some people, they can manage this a little bit better, but if you're anything like me, you probably have just experienced this drug-like compulsion to eat more, even though you're full, even though you're done. And that's caused by the carbohydrates. So here's what you can do. You can have a couple of options. First things first, you can do it the way that most people will say, oh, just eat less and move more, like food, that's whatever. That can work, okay? But from my experience, that just leads to more suffering. And typically, it doesn't work out that well. 95% of diets don't turn out that well. And the reason for that is because they just aren't eating the right things. They're just trying to use their willpower and get through it. And it's not like a long-term lifestyle thing. It's just like, oh, I'm going to try to eat less now. But the food is the same, and it's still messing with their hunger signals, except it's harder now because you're trying to eat less food, and so your body is screaming overtime, telling you to eat more. That's just, that first strategy doesn't really work out for a lot of people. If you have a lot of willpower, maybe you can make it happen. If you count your calories and you really restrict yourself. I partially succeeded with that in the past, but it just got harder and harder as time went on. The second option that you can do is to really lower the carbohydrates in your diet, right? I found this to be extremely helpful. All right, or just removing the junk food. That'll remove a lot of carbohydrates in and of itself because most junk food has a ton of carbohydrates. Yes, there are some with like weird seed oil fats and stuff and just unnecessary amounts of food. But just removing the junk food in your life and switching to a more whole food approach where it's more meats, maybe more vegetables if you like that because they're generally lower carbohydrate. If you switch to that and you have like some fruit along with that, that might be it for you. That might be the perfect thing because you're already removing a ton of carbohydrates. You're removing that extra factor of the processed food that is designed for you to overeat. You remove that factor and you're eating mostly, whole food. Great. I think that's a pretty good option because you're lowering the addictive foods in your diet. That's good. Or you can go completely over to eating just non-addictive foods in general. And that's what I've done for myself, and I think that's really the best option if you really want to dial this in and you want to get control. In particular, I think removing all of the carbohydrates from your diet, even like the fruits and the starches like the potatoes and stuff, and switching to a more ketogenic, even a carnivore diet can help you really regain control of your hunger signals and allow you to have control over your diet. And so if you want help with that, then I've made a course on how to do that exactly in the description if you want to do that. Okay, so if you're convinced that you just want to remove the carbohydrates and the junk food from your life, I just kind of want to cover a couple of the struggles that you might face and how you can overcome them in this journey to restore your health and actually manage your diet a whole lot better. And I think the first one that you'll really run into especially if you remove carbohydrates, less so for junk food, but especially if you remove sugar from your life to a great extent, is you will run into a ton of these cravings for junk food, for certain kinds of like weird processed foods, or these sugars, something sweet. You're gonna have this like weird withdrawal like experience, especially if you cut out all carbs, especially for like the first 2 weeks. Your brain, since it's been addicted to this sugar, to these carbohydrates for a long time, it's going to go through some withdrawals. And I experienced this personally whenever I first swapped to a ketogenic carnivore diet last year. For those first 2 weeks, I just had this weird drive. Like I needed it. I needed the sugar, like some crack fiend. But I fortunately persisted through that. And on the other end of that, it was like I woke up one day and that drive was just completely gone. And day by day, as I keep going on this journey, sometimes I'll have this inclination like, oh, what if I had some pizza? Or, well, what if I had some fruit? Or I had some like cookies or whatever. Because, my parents or my siblings, or I'll just be out in the world and I'll be exposed to some junk food like a cookie or whatever, and I'll get the whiff of it. It'll smell kind of nice, and I'll be like, maybe I should have that. But that super intense craving, like I need to have it, like it's gone. And so generally those last for 2 to 3 weeks or so. So just be aware of that. I think that's kind of the biggest hurdle that people come across is whenever you're removing carbohydrates, there's a transition phase. And so if you want to do it slowly, that works as well. I haven't personally experimented with that, but I would believe that would be pretty good. Is just gradually reduce it down, taper it down, kind of wean yourself off. I went the cold turkey route just because I was sick of it, and it wasn't the best for 2 weeks, but here's how you can kind of manage that craving. Besides just kind of like gritting through it and just trying to survive and just, avoiding all the junk food that you can and the sugary stuff and the fruit, what you can do is just eat more nutritious foods, because that's really what your body's asking for. And if your body is asking you for like these like sugary carb, like I need energy, give it nutritious food. Okay, so eat a steak, eat some eggs, right? If you like vegetables, like go ahead. I personally don't do that because I'm on a carnivore diet, and that's how I feel best. But if you want to add variety in, I can understand that. So like broccoli and salmon or whatever, right? Go for that. Have really nutrient dense whole foods that will satisfy you. I just this afternoon I was eating some like pork chops and a little bit of burger patties, and it's just so satisfying. I don't even need to eat that much to really feel satisfied and just get on with my day. That's really the biggest tip that I can say for overcoming these cravings. Is if you have sugar cravings, go eat steak, go eat some pork chops, go eat some chicken or eggs or whatever meat you have available. Go have that. If you want vegetables as a side, like, okay, fine, just no starchy vegetables, right? Keep it, keep it to low carb vegetables, and those are generally going to be, satisfying, and they're going to they're really going to kind of curb those sugar cravings. And after you get past that 2 week period, you're probably not going to experience them nearly as often or at all like I have. So moving on to the second obstacle that you might face, it's people. It's how a lot of people will react to you if you want to make an intentional diet change. Now, this is a little bit brutal, but I just want it to be, just straight up, because this is something you might and very will likely experience if you're trying to make a change in your diet. People around you will either judge you, they'll question you, they'll say, "Oh, what about this or that, or what about this and that and this thing and that thing," and it can get annoying, and you can get peer pressured into doing things that you don't want to, into eating food that you don't think is the best for you, and causes you to, go into binge eating mode and just eat a ton. That's not great. Okay, a couple ways that you can manage that is just let the people in your life know, like, hey, I'm making this intentional change. Don't mess with me, right? Just keep it real with them. Just be honest. Like, hey, I'm making this change. Don't pressure me, okay? I want this to work. And if they're not in support of that, then they're probably not the greatest friends or the greatest people to hang around, right? And if it's inevitable, just don't talk to them as much about it. Just change the subject. What you can really do, though, is if you are, which I would expect you to be, though I can't guarantee it, if you are feeling a lot better because you have removed the carbohydrates in your diet, because you have started eating more whole food, and people in your life are telling you, hey, but what about this? What about, oh, but you're eating more meat? What about your kidneys? What about cholesterol? What about this thing? If you're feeling better, tell them to shut up. Because if you are feeling better and your life experience day to day is better, and you are not overeating food like you used to, like, I'm kind of speaking to my younger self. If you aren't binge eating food and you aren't, cramming cookies down your gullet, like, oh, no, like, these are so tasty. If you aren't doing that anymore because you're deciding to eat the right foods, don't listen to these people. Like, just kind of laugh, like, haha, yeah, and just keep doing what works for you. Okay, don't get pressured out of doing what is right for you. So don't listen to anyone who says, oh, but you're going to die if you eat that. Because if you feel great on, a low carbohydrate diet, or even just a whole food only diet, and people are telling you, oh, but, what about some pizza? How about, you got to live a little, like just disregard their opinions. Stop caring and just ignore them. That's the best that I can really say, is just try your best to ignore them, change the conversation, change the subject, or just be straight up with them and confront them honestly and be like, hey, this is what works for me. Shut up. Okay? So that's kind of how I would deal with judgment from people around me. I've been doing this for a year now, so I kind of understand it. And mostly the ignore and just like change the subject works most of the time. Because after a little bit, people don't care. They forget. They have their own lives to get to, their own overeating carb addictions to get to. So you don't have to worry about that. And honestly, you can be a role model. Like, if you're getting a lot healthier and people ask you what you eat, share that with them. Like, hey, I'm eating this way because of X, Y, and Z, because of what Keegan told me. Share what you've learned with them, and maybe they try it as well, and maybe they'll become supportive. So, that's what I've done with a couple of people in my life, and I think it's working out pretty great. So that's all I got for you today. Again, if you need help getting onto a ketogenic/carnivore diet, then I made that course explicitly for that down in the description, so you can, gain control of your diet, have, stick to it for a while so you can actually experience the benefits of it, and you get just kind of a little bit more details on, common pitfalls and how it works. So yeah, if you enjoyed that, then go click the link down in the description, go subscribe, that sort of thing, and I'll see you in the next one.